where appropriate. Midgard was the land where the descendants of Ask and Embla, the first humans created by the kings and queens. For ages, mankind survived under the watchful protection of the kings and queens, who had always shielded them from the forces of chaos. Among these protectors, Thor, the great terminator of giants, stood as the defender of Midgard, ensuring that the land of men would never fall under the control of the yoke of Mar, a symbol of chaos. Under the constant vigilance of the kings and queens, humanity flourished, never forgetting to offer the proper sacrifices to the kings and queens in gratitude. These people, resilient in spirit, were accustomed to the harsh winters that often came with the changing seasons. They always prepared for the long, icy cold that could easily overwhelm the land. But even these men who were so skilled in survival knew that the reign of the kings and queens would not last forever. They understood that the Asgardian rulers would have to face the forces of evil during the Ragnarok, the ultimate battle between order and chaos. As the summer began to fade in Midgard, everything seemed to point to a bountiful harvest ahead. But unexpectedly, a cold wind swept through the land, and frost devastated a large portion of the crops. The leaves on the trees changed colors and fell far earlier than usual, signaling that a harsh winter was approaching. Despite the damage to their crops, the people of Midgard did everything in their power to prepare for the long, cold season ahead. Still, even with their efforts, they could not fully prepare for the upcoming nightmare. Fimbulwinter had arrived, a long, unending winter. 3 brutal winters would follow, with no summer to break the icy grip. Mankind, along with their livestock, sought shelter from the freezing cold, doing their best to survive the relentless winter. The nights seemed to stretch longer with each passing day, and the people began to fear that the sun would never rise again. As their food supplies dwindled, they were forced to eat even the chickens that had been laying eggs, and, tragically, even their pets. In their desperation, some attempted to hunt in the cold, but became easy prey for the packs of Fenrir's offspring, the wolves that prowled the land. Soon, chaos took root among mankind. People turned on one another, fighting for the meager resources that remained. Brothers fought brothers, and children defied their parents. The world seemed to be descending into madness as the blood of warriors stained the battle axes. In Asgard, the kings and queens watched as signs of impending doom became clearer. The cataclysmic events that would lead to Ragnarok were unfolding. The forces of chaos were rising, ready to bring about the end of the age of the kings and queens. It began with 2 wolves, offspring of Fenrir, who chased the sun and the moon across the sky. Hati pursued the moon, while Skuld chased the sun. For a time, the celestial rulers who embodied the moon and the sun managed to escape the wolves' relentless pursuit. However, they could not elude the offspring of Fenrir forever. The wolves eventually caught up to their prey, swallowing the sun and the moon. The world was plunged into total darkness. Major earthquakes shook the land as the world tree trembled. The rock that had once bound the mighty wolf Fenrir shattered, and the colossal wolf was finally free to wreak havoc. Meanwhile, the Jormungandr, the world serpent, writhed in the oceans, causing massive tsunamis that swept away coastal cities. The serpent's venom polluted the waters, poisoning all creatures, from the smallest plankton to the largest whales, which all perished. Loki, imprisoned for his misdeeds, finally broke free of his bonds. Filled with rage and vengeance, he sought to bring about the destruction of the Asgardian kings and queens. He made his way to Helheim, the kingdom of the dead, where the souls of those who had died shameful deaths were sent. There, Hel, the queen of the dead, handed Loki an army of the undead, those who had failed to earn glory in life. These were the Norse zombies, marching toward Midgard to wreak havoc on the living. At the same time, Nidhogg, the dragon who gnawed at the roots of the World Tree, dug a great tunnel, allowing the dead to march toward the land of men. The Muspelheim forces, led by the fire giant Surtur, also began their march. Surtur, wielding a blazing sword, burned everything in his path as he led the giants of Jotunheim on ships made of human nails toward Vigrid, the prophesied battlefield for the final clash between the kings and queens and the forces of chaos. As the forces of chaos began their advance, Heimdall, the guardian of the kings and queens, sounded the Gjallarhorn, signaling the beginning of the great battle. The sound echoed throughout the universe, warning all that the end of the era of the Asgardian rulers was near. The kings and queens knew that the battle was inevitable, and they had been preparing for this day for thousands of years. The gates of Valhalla were opened, and the bravest warriors who had died fighting in battle marched forth, joining the kings and queens' ranks. These warriors had been taken by the Valkyries to Valhalla, where they awaited the final battle during Ragnarok. The kings and queens and their warriors charged into battle, while the great Bifrost Bridge collapsed, sending part of the army into the waters. But the rulers knew their fate was not to hide behind the walls of Asgard. They would face their enemies on the open field, honorably, just as they had always done. Odin, riding his magnificent eight-legged horse, led the charge. The clash of the armies was so immense that it shook the very foundations of the world. Thor, the champion of the rulers, charged forward, eager to crush the skulls of the giants. He fought with fury, killing hundreds of enemies at once. The ice giants, led by Hrym, fought bravely against Odin's forces. Meanwhile, Loki led Hel's army of the undead, while Frey did his best to hold off Surtur, the mighty fire giant. But even Frey could not stop the giant's devastating flames, and he was killed by Surtur's fiery sword. As Frey lay dying, he regretted giving his magical sword to Skrymir, for he knew that if he had kept it, the outcome might have been different. Tyr, the warrior king who had sacrificed his hand to trap Fenrir, also fell in battle. He fought valiantly, but Fenrir's massive jaws consumed him. Before his death, however, Tyr managed to strike a blow to the heart of the great wolf, killing him. The battlefield was thrown into chaos as Jormungandr, the world serpent, emerged to fight the rulers. Its venomous breath killed many warriors, and when Thor confronted the serpent, their battle was nothing short of legendary. Thor managed to strike the serpent with his mighty hammer, forcing it to the ground. But as the serpent's poison spread into the air, Thor was killed by the venom, and the ruler's chances of victory grew slimmer. Fenrir, the massive wolf, devoured all who opposed him, and his ultimate goal was to find Odin, the supreme ruler. The inevitable battle between father and son took place, and Fenrir, in a final act of defiance, consumed Odin whole. With his father's death, the kings and queens were shaken to their core, but Vidar, Odin's son, avenged his father. Using his immense strength, Vidar tore Fenrir's jaw in two, slaying the wolf. Meanwhile, Heimdall faced off against Loki. The two fought fiercely, but neither emerged victorious. Both died, and the flames of Surtur's sword consumed everything in its path, including the palaces of Asgard. The great flood came, drowning everything in its wake, and the age of the Asgardian rulers came to an end. However, after the flood waters receded, new life began to grow. The earth started to blossom once again. A new sun emerged, casting away the darkness. The great ash tree, which had withstood the ravages of Ragnarok, fell, but within it, a secret was hidden. Two mortal beings had been spared by the kings and queens to repopulate the world. The new kingdom of Valkor rose from the ashes of the old. The sons of Odin and Thor took their places in this new realm, and the cycle of life continued. As the kings and queens began a new round of the ancestral game, they remembered the past and sought to avoid the mistakes that had led to their downfall. A new era had begun, and with it, a new hope for the future of both the kings and queens and mankind. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more ancient legends and folklore, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to StorySeeker. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss a new story. See you in the next adventure.